podcast. I'm your host, Kristen Carney, along with Marnie Kinross, owner of wingrowmethod.com. And today we have with us under our fort, it's a very esteemed fort, we have relationship coach Rob Kandal. Thanks for joining us.
It's my absolute pleasure to be here.
And thank you for being such a good sport.
He's
rolling with it.
It's a unique position to be in.
It definitely is a unique position.
Literally, because you are in a unique physical position,
That's
the way you're
true.
laying
Very
and
true.
everything.
We have you lying down.
Yeah, under a table with two women, unusual position.
Yeah, I mean, this is every guy's dream who listens to the
It's
show,
true,
being
true.
under a table with
Headphones
the two of us.
and mic'd at the same time.
Yeah,
Always
good
exactly.
first date.
Yeah, exactly.
Recording. This is a blast so far. I'm having a wonderful time. But we wanted to have Robert on the show because someone reached out to me and had actually pitched another guest to be on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, do you have anybody who speaks more to a male audience? Because this person was for women. And she said, oh my God, I'm so dumb. Why didn't I think of Robert? He's perfect for your show. And she sent me over some topics that you are well versed in and that are big topics for you. And they were perfect for our audience. So a couple that I'd like to start off with is really the challenge for men in the 21st century and how the Me Too movement has affected men and how the progressive programs for women in the end of the 20th century have hurt men. That's a big topic that I'd love to talk about with you.
Great.
Yeah. So tell me,
yes.
how have these things affected men, and how has women becoming more empowered in programs that have been placed for women? How is it hurting men?
Well, the first thing I want to say is everyone's challenged. And so my hope is when I explain my research and what I've seen, it's not to diminish the challenges that women face and other genders face. So sometimes people hear me speak and think, oh, he doesn't know about the pain of women. So I get it. I really get it. Exactly. But I want to really talk about this because it's unknown. It's not talked about enough. So there's some great books out there. The End of Men, Men on Strike, that really describe this phenomenon. And what's happened was in the 70s and 80s, society really looked at the position of girls, and I use girls deliberately versus women, looking at girls, teenage girls and high school girls, and saw that they were undeveloped, especially in the area of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And what they did is they started to create programs for women specifically, and many empowerment programs, which was great. And what happened was that there was no complementary program for men. And so while women, increased and rose up, and which was great for women, men didn't have any complementary programs.
Well, wasn't it created because men had all the complementary programs before that was in place for them? So
Right.
Didn't they already? You're saying something special.
Well, would you look at the statistics, which are really interesting to look at? So one is great. It's the gender pay grade. So in the 1980s, the gender pay grade was 64 cents of a woman versus a man. Now, millennial women entering the workforce, is 93 cents for a woman versus a man.
Amazing.
If you look at college program entry or applications, it was 65% male and 35% women. This was in the 70s and 80s. Now that's flipped. Now it's 65% women, 35% men.
Oh, wow.
You look at what happened in 2008 in the recession, there were 6 million jobs lost, mostly in industrial and manufacturing, which were male-dominated. So while it's been great for the women for rising, men haven't had what's needed in the 21st century, which is more skills around communication, relating, intimacy, emotions. And what happens is women have rose up in power and men pretty much stayed the same. Now, while this is great for the equality side, what's happened is men's emotional reaction to this has been
Negative.
very detrimental. And this is what I'm talking about because men are tending to, instead of taking the challenge or seeing the mountains, they're actually tending to quit. There's a whole demographic of Japanese men under 30 who are virgins and have no desire to pursue women.
Wait, what is that called? What is that movement called? The person who did the shootings was part of that group. We've talked about it on our show before. It's like a celibacy group.
Yeah, exactly.
What is it called?
I forget. It
Yeah.
has like a very detrimental name, like some fruit name. But what's happening is in Japan, the whole society is being affected because the generations are getting older, which means that people are living longer and there's a lot less kids coming into the environment. So what's happening to men is that they're not stepping up. They're not seeing the challenge. Then Me Too happened, which was awesome and very important for it to happen. But men are also using that as a way to take a step back, to go into hiding, to not take any risks. And they're being more and more shrunk inside of that. So and the worst part about it all is that men aren't given permission to speak about their pain and their challenges. Because we're white, cisgendered men, we are not supposed to have any problems.
Yeah.
It's like a rich person who has a bad family life. Like I talked to...
It's mine.
Whoa, that's getting really loud. I think maybe.
Okay, there.
Okay.
Sorry, go on.
I talked to, on my show, I talked to a son of a major movie producer, huge movie producer. And he talked about all I really wanted was to have a family, a normal family that I could talk to and relate to. But even with the millions and millions and the big houses, he didn't have it. And so because men are perceived as having it all, for them to complain or talk about or even discuss their emotions has a negative bias in today's society. So not only are they suffering, they're suffering in silence.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people in general are suffering in silence. If they have achieved a certain level of success or a certain income, they're not exactly what you're saying. They're not allowed to have problems or whine about things that are bothering them because they aren't real issues. Like I'm putting it in quotations or air quotes, because people will get angry at them and think that they're disgusting in some way for having these issues.
Well, last week, I think Henry Cavill, I don't know if I say his name right, but who played Superman in the most recent one, he was in Esquire or some sort of men's magazine talking about how he's afraid to approach women because of the Me Too movement. And the massive angry mob backlash that he got on Twitter, he ended up issuing an apology. And it was one girl who kind of set it off, and she said, if you won't have to worry about being, labeled a rapist or, whatever to women if you just act in an appropriate manner. There's nothing to worry about, like, how dare you? And it was shaming him. And so, of course, he issued the apology. And I stayed mum on it because I have the unpopular opinion, which is he has a right to feel afraid, because I know I have men in my life that, like my brother specifically, he's a great guy. He would never, because basically what she was saying was, if you just are nice to women, you don't have to worry about them lying. They're not going to lie. But my brother had an experience when he was a younger man. It's like a high school senior, and he had a girl that was, I don't know, like 5 years younger than him, saying that he had done bad things to her sister, which he hadn't. And then eventually she apologized for it. But he has a fear around women because of his experience. So women in the Me Too movement, I understand the whole thing, but it doesn't mean that all women 100% are going to be honest, great women. And giving them the benefit of the doubt all the time is kind of irresponsible, because if we want to be seen as equal, we need to judge people.
Acknowledge that men are equal as well.
Right. And so Henry issuing the apology bothered me because he had to then lie about his true feelings, which are, we're in a situation where it's like your nervousness is elevated right now, and it's understandable, and to throw away men's feelings because of that is really frustrating to me and really angers me. But if I had tweeted that, I would have been attacked mercilessly, because that's not the popular opinion right now on Twitter.
But it would have started a conversation that would have been helpful if you had.
Right, but then I would be anti-women, not a feminist. It's like, so I hate this black and white thinking where it's like, either you're bad or you're good, and if you're bad, we are going to take you down with our army holding, like big pitchforks. I hate that that's happening right now. It bothers me. But I mean, of course, I'm glad that predators and stuff are being exposed, et cetera, et cetera. But I just don't like that then it kind of switches it to...
Well, it's scaring off awesome men.
Yeah, that basically I feel bad for awesome men that are being scared off.
And then I feel bad for women, because then again, they will only be pursued by the people who don't give a shit about this, who are maybe a little bit more aggressive or dominant.
Right.
And again...
And nice guys like my brother are the ones kind of suffering in a way.
So what's your solution for this thing going on right now for men?
Well, there's two things. One is I do think that women need time to vent. I wrote an article, What Lies Underneath Men's Privilege is Fear and Desire, basically exposing my viewpoints of what happens. What's got us to this point of privilege is our fear, acting bravado, catcalling instead of engaging, all this, fear that we can't acknowledge, and really this strong desire that we don't know how to communicate. And what that comes out with is poor behavior.
I'm sorry, I need to interrupt you. I used to do a joke. I'm a comic.
Mm-hmm.
I used to do this joke. It was one of my absolute first jokes where I was trying to explain, like, when you're in a road rage incident or something happens on the road and you really just want to explain, like if someone beeps at you and you're like, well, I can't go because of the person crossing in front of me. You just can't see them because they're a pedestrian and you're behind me. And like, I really always want to explain it. And then instead I just yell out, fuck you,
Right.
because you're too, in the moment and frustrated, and you're not going to have the time to actually articulate what's actually going on. And so then it comes out as aggression when really I want it to come out as an explanation and a connection with that person as to why we shouldn't be arguing right now.
Exactly.
But it comes out aggressive.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wrote this article. It was well written. It was edited by an excellent woman editor who worked for 7x7 magazine. She's amazing. And I got flamed by women on there. And they were just so angry that I would write an article explaining men's behavior. And then inside the article, I had the gall to say that it's up to men first being amenable to change, but also for women to participate,
To help.
to educate
Help Brother
men.
Al.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my viewpoint is that we have a society of angry women and dumb guys.
It's a bad combination.
It's a bad combination. And so women are angry. They don't communicate what they want. They don't express when their boundaries are being pushed. And what happens is guys just think everything's fine,
Until it's not.
Until they're gone. And so there's no middle ground. So, it's not that women need to educate men. It's that the women have the opportunity to educate men. It's a very different thing. And for a man to learn, to expand, to evolve, my viewpoint is his ego's got to be cracked, which is usually done by another man, and then a woman's got to go in there and fine tune. Because your example of just being a nice guy, men don't know what that means.
Right.
They're so confused by that. Confused because you say to me you want me to be strong and be, like a warrior, to be like, the Aquaman guy or the Game of Thrones guy, and then you want me to be tender, but you're not telling me
a blanket
when,
and do a podcast.
Be soft and exactly. Like we don't understand, and we're not taught the emotional visual cues of when to morph. We're taught to shun our feminine side, our emotional side. Mm-hmm. We're taught that those are negative, and you don't be a pussy and don't be a little girl and all these things. And so we're totally confused. Then Me Too comes around, and then we get scared, and then we give up.
Yeah.
So the solution is for men first to say, and this has to come from a man, I want to learn, I want to get better, I want to evolve, I want to step up in being a good man to a woman.
Which is what everybody who listens to this podcast
But like
is.
this girl on Twitter that I'm referring to who called out Henry Cavill, I'm just saying Henry because I don't know how to say his last name.
That's right.
Superman.
Yeah.
She simplified it and she just said, well, don't be a creep and nothing bad will happen.
Right.
So can we say that to guys?
No.
Just don't be a creep? Exactly. No. It's like it's so much more complex than people are giving it credit for.
Right. So women are angry, guys are dumb because women won't tell the truth to men. And then also women get mad.
Well, can you dissect that a little bit? What do
Sure.
you mean by women won't tell the truth? Is it that they don't know how to, or they're verbalizing in a way that they can understand, but that men don't understand?
And the truth about what?
The truth about what?
Everything, pretty much. The fine details.
Oh my God, if I start saying the truth to men, they'll shut off their brains in 2 seconds.
Right. No, but it's true.
Yeah.
So, and women have that viewpoint.
You can't handle the truth.
Right. Women have the viewpoint that men won't listen. And it's a true viewpoint. So it does take a man showing up saying, please, I'd like to learn. I will reward you for the truth. It takes, a man willing. But then
Can you advise, sorry to interrupt you, but can you advise men who are listening to this show how specifically they could ask this question of a woman who is potentially offended or maybe potentially offended by them being curious?
I feel like it could come across a little patronizing. Like, I don't know, tell me, teach me. I'm stupid, teach me.
Yeah, that won't work.
Right. So what's the right way to do it?
It takes vulnerability and it takes specific. So, I've been doing this work for 20 years. I've been pounded by many teachers, both men and women. So I've gone through the ringer, and I still make a lot of mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes with my wife. And like one time she's like talking about something about the kids and and then I'm like, oh, this is how we fix it. This is what we can do. I go right into my masculine. I go right into my
Fix it mode,
Mr. Fix It. And then her face did not smile. And I said, oh, and I said, what? And she goes, well, I actually just wanted you to validate my feelings. And I was like, oh. And then I said, thank you. And I said, I appreciate that. And I learned that lesson, and I took that lesson in. So she told me the truth, and I rewarded her for telling me the truth, and then I got better at it. So if you're a guy who wants to learn in relationship with a woman you can learn from, you can say that to her. Like, listen, I have come to the realization in my life that there are certain parts of relating to women I don't know about. And I want to ask you and give you full permission to adjust me or reflect back to me at any time if I do something that you don't like. And when you do, all I'm going to say is thank you. So you set it up as a game. You set it up as an agreement. You set it up as a way, an opening.
But is it even between you and her where if she does something that you don't like, you can say something? Because then it kind of seems like the balance starts to kind of go where it's just like the woman's almost being too catered to or too coddled or something like that.
Well, most guys I know are pretty quick to say when a woman is doing something they're bothering him, either on his face. He's much more apt to be like, we have much more permission in society to express our distaste at a woman doing something. So while it seems like it could be catering, all it does is open up the dialogue between a man and a woman. And what you're doing is you're actually enrolling that woman onto your team. Like you would go and get a good stockbroker, you go get a good physical trainer to help you up-level your game. All you're doing is to the trusted, intimate friends in your life who are women saying, I want to get better. I'm interested. Show interest, show willingness, and reward for the truth. And it's amazing what can happen. And these little things that women can show that men don't know, just like shoes and colors and posture and facial gestures and specific words that don't work. It's like we don't know them until someone reflects back to us how to do it.
That makes sense.
That makes complete sense. Well, so my question is, what if a man says these things to a woman who is not well equipped, like your wife, to respond in such a succinct and clear manner?
And especially for younger guys too, that aren't married and that are dating.
Right.
Well, dating is different. And, I don't necessarily would say this if you're starting your third or fourth date to ask this. If you're in the middle of more of a longer term relationship, you can start to be like, hey, I want to open up the lines of communication between us. And what's been successful for me in the past is when we can just be honest with each other about pretty much everything. And I want to just give you the space. If something arises between us that you don't like, you can just tell me. And, we can have a hand signal. I've created a game
called the middle finger.
Well, it's actually called Truth Moment. #Truth Moment. It's basically, my wife and I have this. She's like, Truth Moment? I'm like, yeah. And she goes, blah, 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 blah. So there's a communication game. There's a pathway between you. And for younger guys and younger women, just sit and in the dialogue. So if you have a young guy and a young woman, the woman doesn't know how to quite express it. She might say, well, there's something about that really bothered me, and I'm not sure what it is. And the guy's like, okay, well, what are the clues or what are the feelings? And like you investigate, you tear it apart and you investigate. And then even if she can't say in the moment what it is, you're still going to get more information if she doesn't say anything at all.
Okay, very helpful. We're going to take a quick break because this is very good information that I want people to sit with for a moment and consume. And we'll be back in a second.
Hey guys, I think you know who I'm going to be talking about right now. Well, Hims, yes, but you. Hims and you. Because we see what's going on when you move your hair a certain way or do the old comb over to try to hide what's thinning. We know what you're going through. We know the pain that you're suffering, and we don't want you to suffer. And guess what? You don't have to suffer because there's Hims. Hims is an amazing wellness brand for men that wants to help you fix your hair and keep it from falling out today for $5. They connect you with real doctors. It's real science. It's fast, easy, no waiting room, no doctor's office, sleek packaging. So right now, go to forhims.com/wants to get everything you need to keep your hair for just $5 today while supplies last. See their website for full details, but this would cost you hundreds if you went to the doctor or pharmacy. Go to forhims.com/wants. That's forhims.com/wants. forhims.com/wants.
All right, we are back.
Hi.
Very good information.
Thank you.
So the book that you have written, is it about all of this? Like, this is the topic of how men can rise up during this time without dominating and needing to, kill people and bash them over the head.
And what's the name of it?
The book is called Unhidden, a book for men and those confused by them. So it's a pragmatic guide for men in the 21st century.
And for women, though. Because
Yes.
people, okay, cool.
Yes. So it's predominantly for men to give them a pragmatic guidebook. There's been many great men's books, but not many great men's books, especially recent ones that have come out. And so it's really step-by-step how to deal with communication and jealousy, your father's path. It's really just a pragmatic guide of how to succeed in the 21st century. And on the flip side, every chapter has a section for women just to shine the light of what happens beneath this typical male facade, this stoic facade that everything's fine, but really there's a lot going on, and how to just learn to be better friends and better lovers to men.
Do a lot of men have a fear that if they learn how to do everything that you're talking about, that they may become women
Pussies,
or pussies?
basically.
Like, is that a fear for a lot of men that, okay, fine, if I learn to open up and communicate these things, am I going to become, like her girlfriend and we go shoe shopping all the time? Like, so how do men balance that out so that they still are men that women are attracted to, or their woman is attracted to, but also being this amazing communicator? Is that possible?
Totally, completely.
Okay.
I'm an example of it. So I started off very masculine, very smart, very linear, good strategist, a nice guy, totally disconnected from my feelings.
Did somebody tell you to be that way?
Well, I was thrown into many experiences that had my ego ripped apart and my soul ripped apart. And I saw the value of actually learning to connect to my feminine side. Everyone has what I call the masculine-feminine ratio. Everyone, including you guys. And what happens in life is that you have calls to action to either shift from masculine, feminine, or feminine to masculine. So, for like my wife is a very feminine woman, but she has 2 kids. So she's got to slip into the masculine, to get them fed, to get them to school, to get she really gets into action. A lot of women going into the business world are getting stuck in their masculine and not knowing how to reconnect to their feminine. So what I teach men is to change and work on the ratio on a moment's notice to figure out what's the best position or ratio to be. Like when my wife said, I want you to validate my feelings. Well, that's me going deep into my feminine to be with her without my masculine saying how to fix it. But then I can slide right back to the masculine when she feels complete with that. I'm like, okay, let's solve the problem together. It's a mastery.
Then you're just like, here's my dick.
Yeah.
Well, here's
Bend over.
Here's my skill set, basically.
Yeah.
So the point is that the book really shows you that it's okay to be connected to your feminine. Actually, it's really a power.
Honestly, so my boyfriend used to work like back long time ago when one of his first jobs was working at a makeup counter at Neiman Marcus.
I love that.
And so he knows everything about makeup, and he knows like espadrille, like shoes, like he knows all those things, but he's super masculine, like so masculine. But I love the fact that he can kind of joke about my makeup or give me advice on like what colors I should be wearing.
Yeah, it's like that bronzer's not working for
right,
you.
but he's so masculine that it doesn't come across like pussyish or like effeminate. It just is like, oh my God, I have like the best because I have this super masculine boyfriend
And
who
an
I can
in-house makeup
literally
consultant.
talk about clothes with. And it's great.
Right.
And I love it. But again, it doesn't demasculine him, if that's a word at all.
Emasculate.
Emasculate, yeah.
It doesn't demasculine him.
Yeah.
Did that intelligence me?
Yeah.
De-intelligence me? I think so. That
Right.
line. Yeah.
That's a great skill. And that's attractive to women. Women
So attractive.
see, women want a full, complete range of a person.
Right.
And they want that person to shift and morph in response. They want men to have presence. They want men to be able to pay attention. They want men how to notice, and then pick that spot on the ratio level that best complements. But women shift like on a dime. It's just like shift, 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 shift. And so for me, it's like improv class, or like switching from doing the waltz to breakdancing. It's it's really the ability to shift. That's a man's mastery in my book. And if you have judgment on your feminine side, well, you'll stay in your masculine when the woman's calling for more feminine, and then that's where a lot of disruption.
Yeah.
To have skill and mastery to switch. That's
Do
the
you
superpower.
think sometimes, like even when I'm listening to this, I'm just like, oh my God, it sounds like a lot of work for
It
guys.
does. It does.
Do you think it's unfair?
Unfair? I think no. I don't think it's unfair, because I think men. There's two options for men. Men, number one is they can create a box for a woman and basically demand that she's small and stays in a finite range that he feels comfortable with. And a lot of men do this. And I think of the Me Too and the changing of really the 21st century is women are saying, screw that to the box. I'm out of here. The second option is a man can take the dynamic nature of a woman as an opportunity to increase his mastery and skill. Guys love to produce. Guys love the challenge of a game. We love mountains. We like weight, bench pressing. We like building. We like making money. We like, basically producing. And we also like the skill of mastery in terms of women. So is it unfair? It can look like that. But to me, it's just the opportunity to increase your skill, increase your mastery of relating to modern women.
Do these skills cross over into other areas?
Absolutely.
Like what?
Well, communication in itself, you can use anywhere in your life. So communication is my main thing I've learned, and my mastery. It's my favorite thing, because communication is the key. Communication is sex. Communication is business. Communication is relating. Communication, you work with your parents. It's really the main skill. And so I always say, if you can learn to deal with your and your partner's sexuality, you can handle anything. You can handle your boss. You can handle. So focus on learning to master her genitals, master her, her power, master her sexuality, and everything else seems a little bit easier.
Yeah. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
One thing before we get to
I would say that to my boss. Well, I'm great with my wife's genitals.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling this relationship with me and you is going to be great.
And the guy will go, yeah.
Yeah,
teach
I
me?
hear you. Teach me how to do it.
Right.
Show up.
I'm telling you, seriously. So one thing you had said before that your wife said to you, and this is before we get to our questions from our listeners, but she said to you, validate my feelings. Can you just explain what that means?
Well, women enjoyed being seen. And so the validation of feelings is a really important piece. Because in our society, we're not often validated for our feelings. We're moved from the feeling state into the production state. And if for women, most of communication, there's masculine and feminine communication. Masculine communication is really apt for production.
Hey.
Moving from point A to point B. Okay, that's really masculine. And feminine communication is really for connection. It's really looking for intimacy.
I just feel like he doesn't hear me.
Exactly. So a guy will hear a complaint from a woman, and basically his initial thought is, how do I fix it? How do I find the animal? How do I kill the animal? How do I bring the animal home? But the feminine communicator wants to just be in relationship with him over the problem without him fixing it. By validating the feelings, what you're saying is, I hear you. I can understand how that would be challenging for you. Wow, I don't know how I would handle that. Before you go into the production, you're actually going into the relationship and the intimacy, which is what she really wants, and then she wants you to fix it. Mm-hmm. But take the time just to slow down, be in connection, feel the intimacy, and then move from there.
Okay, actually, I do have one follow-up question to that. On the flip side, for men, what do men need and want from women that they should learn how to communicate? Because I know that you're saying, women had been in this box that they want to get the hell out of. Do men really just want us to stand there and look pretty. I don't believe that to be true.
Right.
And silent. What is it that men want
from us
from
to kind of
us?
keep it even?
Because I find that it's a big frustration for a lot of women as well, because they're like, why aren't you telling me to change things? Why aren't you telling me to do things? So what is it that men want?
There's a lot of levels to that question. I'll start off with the most important. So men are external validation junkies. Women are too, but men are especially, because we look externally for the proof that we're doing it right in the world. Usually that's a hot woman that's actually having sex with us. It's the job, it's the prestige, it's the money, it's the car. We're external validation junkies.
Shallow.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a detriment, because what happens is that men are constantly looking for external validation, and they're leaning on women to have it. And so men are afraid that if they reveal all parts of ourselves, that external validation will drop and exit, and we'll be left alone.
Oh, interesting. There's a good similarity between men and women.
Yeah, exactly. But women have permission to speak about this. This is kind of a common meme. By men on the side are supposed to look stoic and we got it handled sort of thing. So the main thing women can do is really give space for men to show all different parts of themselves, to allow the scary, nervous parts and still be loved and accepted and approved of.
And how can a man communicate that to a woman, that he would like that space?
Well, the first thing a man has to do is to have a conversation with himself. Really,
that he's allowed.
He's allowed. It's got to start with the internal self.
And that if you do all of these things, your car's not going to disappear,
Right.
and your house is not going to disappear,
Right.
and your penis is not going to disappear.
The sex is not going to
Right.
Well,
disappear.
I will give the conversation to the men that are listening, because if you do these things, you will get more sex,
Right.
you will get more love, you will get more confirmation
opposite
of
of
your
what you
character.
think.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Because women want a man's vulnerability.
Well, like my sister has her husband is the king of external validation.
Mm-hmm.
House, car, like the bigger stakes, like I mean all of that, and their relationship kind of just plummets when that's getting too out of control.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's getting a new car and he's so focused on the car and the Mercedes and it's got this and that. And then they hit a point where my sister kind of loses it, and then he comes back around for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
but then he dips right back. It's like he can't stay in that space that you're talking about consistently. It's like a constant, he's doing good for a little while, then all of a sudden he drifts off and he's just like, it's baseball and his car and his house and his money and his job. And then my sister loses it again, and then they come back together because he doesn't want to lose her after she loses it, and then he's good for a few months. So how do you stay consistent? Is it just working on it daily, constantly, and without it be like, how do you do it without it being annoying to you and too much of a job for you?
Well, for me, I'm really interested in mastery in all conditions. So to me, it's my hobby, it's my purpose, it's my profession. So people want the maximum results with the least amount of effort. That's the human condition. So
That's the Kristen Carney condition.
okay, there you go. Welcome to the human species.
I'm here.
Yeah. So for a man to want to change, for a person, but let's just say for a man to want to change, the pain of staying the same has to be greater than the pain of change.
Right.
So if we look in the mirror and we see these little love handles, and the pain of looking at the love handles is greater than actually getting our ass to the gym, we'll go to the gym. If we look at the love handles, we're like, yeah, it's okay. We're not going to go to the gym.
Right.
That's across the board in all human conditions. So it has to take the man admitting to himself that I want to change. I want to evolve. And then once you make that commitment, and a commitment's really important, and a commitment doesn't have to be a lifelong commitment. It could be a month or 3 months or 6 months. I'm going to build a practice. Then you come up with a concept of how to do it. You have accountability. It's a process.
His problem is that he's doing it for my sister and my sister alone. It's not for his own improvement. It's to make
Right.
her happy. So if he looked at it more as this is what I want to do to become a better person, and it's my love handles that I don't want to look at anymore, then it would be consistent, I think, rather than just
I don't
like a
think
please.
that's it.
No?
No. I think he's afraid of her leaving.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's not for, your sister.
Well,
That's the
that's
bigger
what I
pain.
mean. But I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying though. It's like it's for keeping my sister. That's
Right.
really what I meant to say. It's not for his own growth. Like he's not. Whenever he becomes better,
Right.
it's not for because he's decided internally this is what he wants to do.
Does your sister listen to this podcast?
No.
Okay, good. Then can I talk bluntly?
You can talk shit, yeah.
Okay, I won't talk shit. I'll just talk bluntly. So your sister is co-creating this bad behavior.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so, and
She's
this is
also
what...
not respecting the fact that he gets pleasure out of doing things that
Well,
are...
no, she does. She respects it all the time. She really does. But
She doesn't if she's getting angry about it.
no, she doesn't.
Sorry,
get-
I want to
well,
hear.
she
I want to
doesn't-
hear you.
But she doesn't get angry about it. She gets angry at the fact that she loses him in the process, that he's not there for her when he's doing all these things. She knows that he's that guy. Like that's very well known in her mind that this is who he is. But he stops communicating with her. He stops talking to her. He stops asking her questions. So she doesn't care. He can continue looking at all the cars he wants as long as that at the same time he's also in the relationship with her.
See, this is my example of angry women and dumb guys.
Right.
Because your sister isn't willing to say, I'm no longer going to put up with this behavior, she bypasses her boundaries. She keeps him dumb.
Right.
And so the
right.
pattern keeps happening. So there must be some benefit for her to stay in the relationship in order not to ask for what she truly wants.
Right. Right.
Well, because when she gets angry, she gets the loving husband for a couple of months.
Right.
And it's great. Oh my God, they are so in love. She's like,
Yeah.
loves him so much. It's like, oh, he's this, he's that, he's this. And then all of a sudden, and she's like, ah.
Right. But she's co-creating that.
Definitely.
So
Oh,
if
yeah.
I was coaching them, we could go to the root of what's actually happening. Why does he go into that? But because she's in this cycle of up and down, she's happy 50% of the time and miserable 50% of the time. There has to be some benefit for her to be in that. Or she's too lazy to make the choice, or I'm not sure what it is, but she's definitely in co-creation with this bad behavior.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think having a child, they have a kid, it's like,
I get it.
yeah, it's
I
kind
get
of,
it.
There's a lot of
complicated.
things that
Right.
contribute to it, but I
Right.
think mostly what I'm hearing Rob talking about is it's just consistent communication from both sides
Right.
prior to either side overstepping a boundary. When a boundary is triggered or hit or slightly stepped over, communication should be shared with the other person who is contributing to them experiencing that.
And for your equality, the men do the same thing.
Yeah.
We're just like, oh, okay, I don't want to get into a fight, or we're having such a nice time and I don't really want to spark it, so I'm just going to, withhold it. And in my world, withholding is akin to lying. I don't believe in white lies. I think white lies are the cancer of relationships. It's time and time again, in proper moments, to communicate, when this happened, this is the way I felt. When you didn't call me, I felt hurt and scared. It's the willingness to, in the moment, as much as possible, to discuss what's happening. Or what we do is we just push it down. It becomes baggage in our relationship, and our communication stops, and we have mediocrity, where most relationships are these days. We have mediocre relationships because we aren't willing to really tell the truth. I mean, the truth about
Or
the
hear the
things.
truth. I think
Absolutely.
I think there has to be an agreement from
No
both
doubt.
sides that you
Totally.
can tell the truth and I'll listen to it.
Right. And reward you.
And reward you for telling me the truth. And I
Right.
think that's a muddy area for a lot of couples as well, because if you do tell the truth several times in a row and you get your head bit off for it, you're like,
Or if you tell the truth several times in a row and you just become either naggy or, annoying or whatever, needy.
Which is the feminine,
Yeah.
the bad stereotype. It's like burning a witch at the stake. It's like, you're needy. No, you're not needy. The guy's just not listening. And then women are putting up with the guy not listening and staying. And so we're so afraid to end relationships or be alone. I'm not sure what it is for each person. But to me, it's like, if you want to live an optimal life, you have to be willing to put all your cards on the table. And that's what the book is about, is just willing to live at this high level of truth and then fall in love with yourself. Self-esteem is built upon esteemable acts of being true, of not having your boundaries crossed. And that's where optimal relating comes from.
I completely agree with that. Okay, here's one question from one of our listeners. Hey, Ask Women podcast peeps, I'm super confused by this woman that I used to like. Actually, I still want a relationship with her, but since she doesn't want one, I will respect that and simply be a friend. I have accepted my role as friend, and I can be a friend even though I have feelings for her. For me, that is fine. I can deal with that and still behave like a gentleman. But I had a confusing dream where we were in a relationship, and it freaked me out because we had just started being friends again after I told her that I liked her and she needed time to sort out her feelings. Since at the time she was out of the country and we could not talk on the phone.
What is this noise?
I don't know. It's like weird squeaking. I emailed her about the dream. Is it better now?
I'm sorry, just start over because it was going
Okay,
the whole time.
but I had a confusing dream where we were in a relationship and it freaked me out because we had just started being friends again after I told her that I liked her and she needed time to sort out her feelings. Since at the time she was out of the country and we could not talk on the phone, I emailed her about my dream and asked to make sure that she didn't like me. She had told me this in the past, but the dream caused confusion in my mind. She responded back, and here are some excerpts from her email.
You can keep going.
Is that what it is? I have never liked you in that way. To me, you've always been the logical friend that would actually look out for me. You understand the road I've walked and the confusing emotions that conflict with the logic we have used to formulate our understanding of life. You are one of the only people that I know that I can say that about. I know that I can talk to you about anything and you will listen and understand me. Most people don't do that. You have been one of my best guy friends, and I want to keep your friendship. She also talked about specific times when she felt that I cared about her and that she knew I had her best interest in mind. She talked about how I had helped her to get out of a bad relationship she was in, and I made her feel safe. We have since talked and are still friends. She will be back in the country in mid-August, and we should be able to continue being friends. I think that basically this is a classic case of being put in the friend zone. The thing that confuses me is that these are some of the characteristics women are looking for in a man. But when I exhibit them, I just end up being the best friend. It could be that when we became friends, she was already in a relationship, and so now we will only be friends in the future. Her best girlfriend tells me that she actually likes me, but only says that she doesn't because she wants to preserve our friendship. I take the girl I like's word over her friends, so I don't think she likes me, but I'm confused. Do you think that she actually likes me, or am I on target with continuing to be a friend? If she does like me, should I change anything from what I've been doing as a friend? Any help is appreciated. Thanks. Confused by women. I think this is kind of in line with what you have been talking about, but I think this is a fear for a lot of men, that what we've been expressing about communication, that if they do this with women, that this will end up happening to them. So I'd love to hear what you have to say.
I think stop pulling and trying to get into the romantic relationship. I think she doesn't like him. And I think there's something beyond his control, that he doesn't light up her sex or her desire. And he should stop focusing on it and put his attention on another woman that actually he can relate to. I think learning to be friends with women is uber important. It's an amazing skill, and I don't think you should diminish yourself for learning this with this woman or being that for a woman. I think it's amazing, but you just don't have some characteristic. It's maybe height, it could be weight, it could be money, it could be a smell. Like, there's so many things out of your control that actually have nothing to do with you, my friend, and your habit of torturing yourself is just a waste of time and energy. Become a friend to her, put your attention on other women, find a woman that really wants you for who you are. And if this woman you desire changes her mind because your attention is elsewhere, well, that's down the line, but just don't hope for it. Just let it go.
I agree.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I just try to imagine like what the vibe is like when they're together, and I would just guess that he doesn't put out a sexual masculine energy because he's too focused on being a friend. And the relationship I'm in now, we were friends at the beginning, and before I would have said, well, they were friends and there's no way it can now change because it's been set as their friends. But I will say we were friends, but there was always there was a vibe and a masculine, sexual, strong energy that I got from him, regardless of being my friend or not. So I think it's too late to set that tone, because I know for me, the tone was there from the beginning. And so I agree that he needs to move on
I think so too, and not use a dream as an excuse to reach out and
Yeah,
ask, are you
and that's-
reevaluating?
Yeah, and then that's kind of just weird. I had a dream. I mean, I
know.
understand. 'Cause I
But
have
he's
very
trying to
intense
find
dreams,
some
but-
way to bring it up so that we can bring the conversation up again, just to clarify and see if things have changed because
Right.
she's away.
But
I
it does
understand
look
what
like
he's
it's
doing.
grasping at straws or
Yeah.
reaching for an excuse. And
Yeah.
and especially that does not come across attractive.
Yeah, I
Women don't like
I
that.
completely
Yeah.
agree.
Do not like that.
No.
So there's in my product about how to get out of the friend zone. There's a book, a mini book that Richard De La Runa, I forget what his name is, but anyway, it's a book that he wrote about the way to get out of the friend zone, even if you've been a friend for X number of years. And it's this very simple book. It's about 8 pages. It's included as a bonus in my program. And it does give advice on how to tweak those tiny things so that you can display the attractive characteristics that potentially could spark attraction in somebody you've been friends with for a long time. The thing that I see in this situation, and it's very similar to what Kristen was saying, is that he may have been not dumbing down his sexuality. He just may have been cutting it off completely with this girl, either consciously or subconsciously. But like you said, Robert, he wasn't sparking anything for her. And there are ways to adjust that and shift that. And it's by switching up your behavior, doing some things for yourself as well. And the book that Richard wrote, which is a bonus in one of my programs called The Friend Zone or Avoiding the Friend Zone, really speaks to how guys can do that. It does involve work and practice and learning some new behaviors that are not manipulative or horrible. And it does involve boosting your confidence in allowing yourself to display and show sexuality to women that you are now currently in a friendship with. And I think, I don't even know what this person's name is, but I think that he should check out that book if he wants. And even if he emails me, I will send it to him for free. But yeah, I think that's the end of our show. But can you tell people how to get in contact with you?
You can visit my website, robertkandel.com. It's
Kandel.
Kandel.
K-A-N.
K-A-N, Robert, K-A-N-D-E-L-L
Yeah.
.com. That's the hub for all my products. I have a podcast called Tough Love, where I speak to this level of intensity once a week. I have my pre-sales for my book, a communication course in Los Angeles I'm teaching September, and various other things. So at robertkandel.com, and it's links to all my social media as well.
I love it. And if you have questions for us and you want to send them in, please write to ask@askwomenpodcast.com, and we will try to get to your questions and overanalyze them to death on our show with ourselves and our guests. New episodes of the Ask Women podcast come out every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, and then I announce them on Friday. If you are noticing that our podcast is not on a platform that you once used, please email us and let us know, and we will try to get it connected so that you can continue listening to our show. You guys are wonderful. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Pleasure.